Okay, so today we're going to be looking at structure, analysing a fiction piece in terms of structure, and also thinking about how to structure your own writing, which might help because structure is something that people tend to find a bit tricky, but thinking about how you structure your own work might help with this a little bit. Yeah, so what I just said, we're going to look at how a piece of literature is structured and how you're going to structure your own writing. So first of all, write down everything you can remember about structure. Pause the video and just jot down everything you can remember about structure. And when you're ready, restart the video. Okay, so hopefully you remembered that the structure of a text is how it is organised and how its parts fit together. So writers structure their text deliberately to have an effect on the reader. So the writers have got these building blocks that they put together to structure a piece, and these might include how you start, how you end, what you zoom in and out of. Do you focus on the writer's inner thoughts? Do you look at outside descriptions? Do you introduce new characters? Do you introduce dialogue? Where do you start? When? All of these things are the building blocks that a writer can use to put their writing together. And you need to ask yourself why. Why has the writer made these choices? And how do they affect my understanding of the text? How have they improved the text? The writer will have done them to make the text better or more interesting or more engaging in some way. So how have those structural pieces done that? How have those building blocks made the text more interesting for you as a reader? So what I want you to do now is read The Tiredness of Rosabelle, which is an exam piece from 2017. It's in the class work for this week. While you're reading it, think about how the piece starts. What descriptions does it focus on and why? Does the piece move from inside the character's thoughts to outside? Does it use flashback for effect? What characters does the writer introduce and why? How does the dialogue add to our understanding of the piece? And anything else you can think of, really, anything else structurally that you think the writer has used. Just jot down ideas at this stage. Stop the video and restart when you've got down a few ideas. Okay, so hopefully now you've had a good think about those things, why the writer has why did you focus on looking out at the shop window, for example? Why was that a sudden why was that a thing the writer felt was important for you to focus on? What did it do? What did it add to the piece? So now I want you to use the assignment 1 in the classroom and answer this question. How does the writer structure this piece to interest you? Write 3 paragraphs analysing the structural features the writer has used and saying why they're effective. When you've written it, compare answers with the mark scheme I've posted. I've put up the a mark scheme for this, which has got some suggested answers in it. Have a look at that and see how it compares with yours. So pause the video, do that, come back when you've finished. Okay, so hopefully you have completed assignment 1. We're going to look now at assignment 2, which is descriptive writing with a particular focus on structure. So descriptive writing paints a picture of a scene or a person, but it's not just about the descriptive language. You get marks for structuring your piece well as well, and people often forget that in descriptive writing. So The Tiredness of Rosabelle obviously was a story, but in this exam you may well be asked to do a descriptive piece. Well, you will be asked to do a descriptive piece, and you may choose to do that. And sometimes people think it's just not important to structure a descriptive piece, and we end up with this sort of blocks of descriptive paragraphs rather than a nicely flowing text, which is what we're after. So following the steps below should help you develop your descriptive pieces so they flow together nicely. And as I said, this is something the examiner will mark you on. So imagine you're about to describe the picture below. You can't see it yet, it's a few slides forward. What sort of choices would you make about the structure? What questions would you ask yourself? So it's this picture here. You're just jotting down notes at this stage. So you're just thinking, what structural, what choices could you make? Okay, so pause the video and have a think about it. So you could be thinking about, where will you start? Will you be in the description? What will you focus on? Will you choose to introduce any characters? Will you zoom in on anything in particular? Will anybody say anything? And if so, how will this add to the piece? And how will it end? So a way of doing this is to point to things in the text that you might want to focus on, and then you can number them to help you focus on what you want to describe first. So there's no need to submit this, just think about it for a second. So maybe have a look at the picture, go back to the picture and think about what you want to describe first. Pause the video and come back to it, and then I'll show you what I did. Okay, so I thought I would focus on the crowd. I thought the crowd were important, number one. And then I thought, well, we'll have a look at these, obviously the fireworks are quite important, these fireworks in particular. Big Ben is quite important, so I'm going to switch my focus to that. And then I thought this air looks very kind of thick and muggy and full of smoke. So that's something I want to think about as well. Maybe you did something completely different. That's absolutely fine. So now you've got these ideas and you need to think, how are you going to move around this piece? We don't want these blocks of description. We want it to flow nicely. So maybe you'll introduce some characters. Characters are good for that. You know, where are you going to start and end? How are you going to fit this piece together? Now remember, the image is a starting point. You don't have to describe exactly what you can see. You can add characters, you can add animals, you can add cars, you can maybe look at the floor, you know, just add things that you think will help us describe this piece. This is what I thought. I thought, well, I'm going to start and end with silence because this will emphasize the sudden noise of the fireworks. I'm going to be a little girl in the crowd looking at everything. I think if I see things through her eyes, this will help me move around the scene. And I want her mum to be in it, because this is going to help me show that the little girl's a bit scared and emphasize how intimidating fireworks can be. So this is what I did, and this is the finished product. Pause the video and have a read through, and then come back to it when you've finished. And then have a think about, just how did this story start? Who told the story? What was the purpose of introducing the mum? What did I switch focus to? How did it end? How were the ideas linked? So hopefully you'll begin to see that it was quite a carefully structured piece. It wasn't just a series of descriptions. I can see this, now I can see this. It was a carefully flowing piece, and I used the character of the little girl to help me move around that picture. Now obviously I've used some language choices in this piece, but I think you'll notice that the elaborate long words aren't that important. You need to really look at the thing that you're describing and try to use words that describe it well, rather than picking the fanciest sounding words. So the longest words aren't necessarily the best. So consider these two phrases: huddling close to my mum for warmth and comfort, huddling close to the matriarch for heat and soccer. Now the second one's got some fancier words in it, but it isn't right, so it just sounds silly. It's too formal, they're just the wrong words. The first one, even though it's very simple, really captures the experience of a child at a firework display on a cold evening. It's got mum, warmth and comfort. So I know some of you get a bit anxious about spelling, and don't want to go for ambitious words because you're worried about not being able to spell them correctly. Obviously spelling is important, but I would always say go for the vocabulary choice you want, rather than worrying too much about spelling, because even if you spell a word wrong, you'll still get, if it's recognizable, you'll still get marks for going for an ambitious word. So now it's your turn. Have a look at the picture of the bus journey below. What are you going to focus on and why? Remember, you can talk about things you can't see. What's on the floor, for example? What characters are you going to focus on? Are you going to be one of them? Will anybody speak? Why? Why would you have anybody speaking? What will that add to the description? How are you going to move on to the next part you want to describe? And how are you going to end? So to help you plan, do what I did. Point to 4 or 5 things maybe, or circle them in the text. Number them 1 to 5 to help you order them properly, and this will keep you focused on what you're describing. And then use vocabulary and language features to add to the descriptions, to add to those things that you've pointed at. Think about where you're going to start and end. Think so the ending, are you going to return to the beginning? Are you going to start where you ended? Like I did with the firework piece, you started and ended with silence. Are you going to lead the reader to think about something else? What's going to happen next? Will it be a natural end? Will you end when you get off the bus? That's quite a useful device. And don't forget, use your 5 senses to describe the piece. Thinking about vocabulary and language now. Make precise language choices. What word will best achieve the effect that you want? Don't just go for the biggest, fanciest word you can think of. And add language features, of course, but think about why. Are they effective? And try and sustain a nice style and tone throughout. Okay, so write a description of the picture below, this bus, which of course relates to the tiredness of Rosabelle. Don't forget the descriptive piece and the piece you've read will link. And record your answers in assignment 2, and I will mark them for you. When you finish, think about, does your piece link and develop ideas by using good structural devices, and has it used precise language to describe what you want to? Hopefully it will have, and you'll have done a splendid piece of descriptive writing. Okay, that's it. Looking forward to reading your pieces, and I will see you next week.